Good morning, everyone. This is Paul Allison from Limitless Space Institute in Houston, Texas, and we are happy to invite you today to listen to our presentation on Moon, Mars, and beyond. This is a discussion that we ended up pre-recording. It's a discussion conversation between Brian B.K. Kelly, who is the president of Limitless Space Institute, and Reid Wiseman, who is the chief NASA astronaut, and that is to accommodate Reid Wiseman's calendar today. So we're very happy that he was able to make time to record this with us a couple of days ago. Prior to getting started, we also have on Dr. Harold Sonny White. Sonny is the director of Limitless Space Institute's Advanced Research and Development Laboratories, and is fortunate with us anyhow having him today to answer a couple of questions that will precede again the presentation. Sonny, good morning. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning, Paul. Glad we get a chance to join you today, bud.
Well, hey, thank you. It's cool to be part of all of this. And, you know, the neat thing about Limitless Space that seems to really trigger the imagination of folks is this idea that, you know, it's actually possible, or at least there's research that you're doing with other universities in collaboration on projects, and to really go to a different solar system. So I'd like to ask you before we listen to BK and Reid, you know, how have you seen this organization change, and what aspirations do you see for Limitless Space? How are we going to be able to do this travel of Moon, Mars, and beyond all of that?
That's a great question, Paul. Right, certainly a monumental challenge. Spaceflight is definitely not easy, and you know, in my 20 some odd years of working in aerospace, I've seen a lot of things change. Right, it's really neat to think that you know, I listened to some of the stuff in the news about commercial cargo, commercial space, commercial lunar, just even that kind of chapter, if you will. I remember back in 2003, you know, very early in my career working in the human spaceflight, getting a chance to meet, you know, some of the new people to the commercial space sector, Elon Musk and some of the other folks, and at the time, people were really trying to wrap their head around the fact of what could this commercial space even be. And you know, it's grown up so much in just the last 15 years, especially, right? And even here in Texas. Right, you've got, we've already heard today from a couple other sessions, you know, intuitive machines are going to be returning the United States to the surface of the moon. And this is a Houston company, right? This is, again, happening in the, arguably, in my opinion, the epicenter of human spaceflight. But returning us to the surface of the moon, you've got Axiom Space, a commercial space station. We just heard from Matt Onler. And then you've got down in Boca Chica, you've got SpaceX is doing some incredible things with something they call Starship. I can think back to watching Falcon 1 in a little bit of a fanboy mode, right? It was just kind of neat to see that kind of evolution of the industry, if you will, really trying to make great strides. And I think it's a good model. I think we've seen that is a very effective way to help free up innovation and allow it to make a lot of progress in a very short period of time, right? You know, BK mentions this on a regular basis. You know, think about the fact the Wright brothers, their first flight with an airplane that was made out of wood and the lightest materials that they could find, its first flight was just, you know, a couple hundred yards, if you will, 800 feet. I don't know the exact figure of merit, but within you know, a little over half of a century of that flight, we landed human beings on the surface of the moon. So exponential change can occur, right? If we really put our minds to it and try and tackle the problems, right? And so there's there's a lot of potential ways that we might be able to try and tackle getting humans out to Mars, out to maybe one day the outer solar system. And who knows, maybe at some point in the far distant future, maybe we could even send human beings to another star system, right? So I think, we're seeing some of the changes occur even now, right, in terms of the mechanisms that drive innovation.
Well, it's exciting to think about this, frankly, and when I see the art, and I think you've said before how life is imitating art, and some of the updates that have happened through your physics research and applying that to old Star Trek kind of stuff, right? In a way that some of the audience may not have actually grown up with seeing those original showings on TV, but this is just really cool stuff, and it's fascinating to listen to you. And I look forward to your presentation, which will start at 10:30 today, on the physics of this and how this is actually possible. It's not, we are making advances, you are making advances, and those universities that you're working with are great. So I'm going to shift over to listen to BK and Reid talk about human flight. And this human flight, again, we've gone to the moon, we're looking at Mars, and Limitless Space is looking at how are we going to do human flight beyond Mars into a new solar system. So thanks again, Sonny, and let's roll on BK and Reid's conversation.
Yeah, give me just a second to share the screen. Okay, can you see the screen before I start?
Yes, looks great. I'm signing off.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Brian Kelly. I go by BK, and I'm the president of the Limitless Space Institute, LSI. It's a 501c3 nonprofit located here in Space City, Houston, Texas. Our mission at LSI is to inspire and educate the next generation to travel beyond our solar system and to research and develop enabling technologies. Joining me here today is Captain Reid Wiseman. Reid is the chief astronaut at NASA right now. Reid graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, I think it was back in '97, selected as an astronaut 2009, and flew on one of my favorite expeditions of all time, around Expedition 40 and 41 back in, when was that, 2014, I think it was. Reid conducted 2 EVAs, one of the greatest guys I know, good man, great astronaut, and a great American. What we're talking about this morning is inspiration and motivation, something that's real important to me. And that's what Reid and I are just going to talk back and forth about this morning. So starting out reasonably quick, Reid, naval aviator, test pilot, astronaut, and now the chief astronaut over there at NASA. What was it? What was your motivation? What inspired you to want to become an astronaut, a naval aviator, and a test pilot?
BK, that's a great question. I think it all has to start with your parents, your family. My mom and dad did a great job raising me. They gave me pretty wide boundaries to live within, let me make my own mistakes, let me find my own successes. And as a kid growing up in Maryland, I got to watch airplanes flying around. That always used to motivate me. Saw the Blue Angels a few times. That started to really kind of inflamed my passion to go fly. And one thing led to another, and went to college, Rensselaer. I wasn't very good at math when I got there, but I really fell in love with math and engineering while I was there. And that led to a career in the Navy, brought me to test pilot school, and then eventually to NASA. And then you were my boss for a while. And I learned a lot about motivation from you. And you were standing there when I was on that Soyuz leaving the planet. You had my kids in your arms, and I've always appreciated that. So thanks for that, BK.
Well, let's follow up with that. So how did I help motivate you? How did I help inspire you? What were those things that connected to you that we can share with other young people out there that want to get involved in space?
From a leader standpoint, your communication was always clear, brief, and concise. And you always valued the people that worked for you. You knew that the mission motivated them, so you didn't need to motivate them through mission. You just motivated them by letting them know that you care about them, you care about each individual. But at the end of the day, there was a mission to accomplish, and everybody has to be focused on that goal. So I think the biggest thing that we have at NASA is we have a goal, we have a mission. Let's put people on the moon, let's put people on Mars, and in the meantime, let's fly and conduct science in low Earth orbit. When you have a mission, you have a lot of motivation. So I think that's a huge, huge component for us. Everyone needs to set goals, achievable goals, and then they need to go out and conquer.
Yeah, what Reid's talking about is extremely important. We formed the Flight Operations Directorate, which is something that I led. I retired from NASA a couple of years ago after, almost 38 years. But one of the key components was defining this mission. And it was clear and crisp. We knew that we were there to select and protect our astronauts and plan and train and fly human space flight and aviation missions. There was no fuzz. It was very clear when you came into work, that was your job. And the things we were involved in was the preparation and planning for missions, conducting those missions and getting our people home regularly and safely. And sometimes it was fairly close. You know, there's a lot of on-orbit challenges that we had to deal with. And then, of course, we had an abort with Nick Hague a few years back. And so we learned a lot from that. Well, tell me, what's it been like as the chief astronaut? One of my jobs back in the day at NASA was selecting a chief astronaut. I've always had a lot of pride in Reid, and he followed Pat Forrester and became the chief astronaut. So what's it been like for you? How are you doing in terms of your inspiration and motivation of our new young astronauts and the veterans over there?
Well, you mentioned Pat Forrester. He was one of the best mentors I've ever had, a great American, a great astronaut. So Pat left the office in really fantastic footing. So for me, it's been a lot more work than I expected, but it's also been a much higher honor than I anticipated. You're not leading all of NASA, but you are leading 46 of our nation's astronauts. And with that comes a lot of privilege, but also a lot of nervous days. We just spent April launching an American from Russia, and then two Americans, a Japanese astronaut and an Italian astronaut. BK, a French astronaut, I'm sorry.
Yes.
On Crew 2 on SpaceX from Florida, and then we brought home Crew 1 into the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Pensacola. So April was the busiest human spaceflight month we've ever had. There were some nail-biting moments, but in the end, our commercial providers, our Russian partners, they did a fantastic job. We got the job done. It was really a fantastic month.
Yeah, that was outstanding. I think all of America, the entire world was very thrilled by everything that was accomplished. So, Reid, you spent, 165 days on orbit, a couple of EVAs. In terms of your experiments, what stands out? Not necessarily experiments and not necessarily EVAs. What do you think of the most? What do you remember the most from your 165 days on orbit?
For sure, you remember the view. The view of our planet is absolutely magnificent. When you see it truly as a planet orbiting the sun, you see the black of space behind the curvature of the Earth. That's something that's burned in your brain forever. No photograph does that justice, BK. Getting to see that with your own human eyes and your own human brain to draw the lines there is pretty impressive. Working inside the space station, the thing that stood out to me the most is the crew that I flew with was amazing. We had a great time up there for 6 months. We worked very well together. It was a multinational crew, US, Germany, and Russia. But at the end of the day, for me, what really stood out was we lived for 6 months on board the space station, and we never really thought about the machine we were living in. It kept us alive. It kept us fed. It had a bathroom. It reprocessed our urine, turned it into drinking water, processed the water and turned it into oxygen for us to breathe. We had commercial cargo ships, government cargo ships, crewed launches and landings. We just never thought about the hardware. The system is pretty tried and true. It's very well built, and it kept us alive. And then that allowed us to focus on the inside, on the human body. What is changing with our body from a science perspective when we're in microgravity for 6 months, and your body goes through a lot of changes. And then also what happens with basic physics. We did a lot of quenching of metals. We looked at blood. We looked at the way fluids move around. We looked at capillary flow experiments. We looked at cancer cells. You name it, we're doing it. It's fairly basic science, but it's also discovering weird new things when you just take away one tiny variable, and that variable is gravity.
Yeah, that's outstanding. It is so cool to hear about the International Space Station now. As a youngster at NASA back in the late 80s and early 90s, heck, I think you must have been in junior high and high school back then. What I was working on was developing the operational concepts for this new space station that ultimately became the International Space Station. A great pride to see that operating today, to see multiple nations working together. Speaking of working together, you're working with a lot of other folks right now. You're in the midst of astronaut selection process. I've had a little bit of experience with that, as you know. Tell me about it. How's it going? What are you looking for? If you're sharing with other people, if there's a youngster looking in on this, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that helps make someone a great astronaut, and what kind of skill sets do they need to have?
As the U.S. Professional Astronaut Corps, as NASA's Astronaut Corps, we're looking for a solid education background. We're looking for operational experience, which you know well is critical. If you're going to climb on a spaceship and operate it off our planet for 6 months, we want to know that you know how to operate. So we're looking for a little slice of all of America. Diversity is absolutely critical in everything we do. And that's not just diversity of race, that's diversity of gender, diversity of professional background. We want diversity of where people grew up. The best team that we have at NASA is a little slice of all of America. And that is what we try to accomplish in the Astronaut Corps, as you well know, BK. So when we're looking for men and women. We're looking for doctors, pilots, engineers, school teachers. We want a little bit of everything in our Astronaut Corps. We want every kid growing up in America to look at NASA's Astronaut Corps and potentially see themselves and motivate the future of our country.
Yeah, I want to just add a little bit to that, to what Reid just said there. Having led our astronaut selection back when we had, golly, we must have had over 18,000 applicants back in 2017. I don't know how many applicants you got this go around, but it may not be that many. But what was so fascinating to me was the opportunity to interview these great Americans that are out there. And we have got tons of them, which is just a wonderful testament to the education and inspiration that's occurring regularly. But there's three things that always stands out to me. And I mentioned this to others when they asked me what to look for. And I summarize it in three simple terms: humble, hungry, and people savvy. You know, it's this. You can see Reid; he's mouthing it because he's heard it. He's heard it so many times. It's this notion, humility, and it's excellence in humility. In excellence, meaning those traits that are measurable. Grade point averages, flight hours, where you placed in your test pilot school. That's the easy stuff. Being humble enough to recognize that there's more that you can learn. Being part of a team so that once you're involved with that team that you can excel and make the whole team work even better. The hunger to learn more, to come in and recognize that, wow, as a professional astronaut, There's a lot I can learn from those that go in front of me and that have traveled in front of me, from my trainers, from all of those people I deal with. And this people savviness, it's this notion of how to work together, how to motivate others, how to inspire others so that they do better as a result of your involvement. Knowing when to listen, knowing when to be quiet, knowing when to lead, knowing when to follow. We put you guys through all kinds of little training scenarios, and you remember that, all these Project X, whatever, where it's an opportunity to determine whether or not somebody can lead, somebody knows how to follow, somebody that knows how to be part of a team. And it's funny, as I sit here, I get excited about it because that's what I miss the most about NASA is the great people and being a part of that. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. So the Limitless Space Institute, I probably surprised one or two people at NASA. I retired a couple of years ago and decided to get involved with education and inspiration, which are the key components based upon this foundation of hardcore research and development, advanced physics, advanced propulsion and power systems, with the whole goal of being able to conduct interstellar space travel. Just so people know, and after we get through talking, Dr. Sonny White, who works with us at the Limitless Space Institute, will talk in much greater detail than Reid and I ever would. We'll talk to you a little bit more about advanced power and propulsion systems. But thinking about what was I going to do in the next chapter of my life, and what I've always wanted to do was coach and inspire and motivate people to do things differently. And this was an area where clearly I had no experience. My whole career was in, flight operations, doing real human space flight, which was essentially low Earth orbit operations. And I asked Reid to join us. He's on our advisory board with a lot of other great, wonderful, technically competent people that help us accomplish our mission. Reid, what were your thoughts when you first heard about BK being involved with interstellar travel and this whole notion of the Limitless Space Institute?
I think probably most people listening to you say that would join me and say BK's gone crazy. Because on the surface, it does sound a little bit crazy, but the more that I thought about what you were doing and what LSI was trying to achieve, the more I kind of started to really enjoy it. At NASA, we've made it very clear. We want to keep humans going in low Earth orbit. We want to walk on the moon, and we eventually want to get to Mars. But humans can't stop there. We need to go well beyond that, and we will go well beyond that. And so who are placing those next steps in people's imaginations? Well, you are. And who better to do that than BK? You're an inspiring leader, and like I said earlier, you care about the people, and I think you'll get the message out there. And then the more I listen to Dr. White talk, the more I realize actually this is valuable. We need to be doing this today. We need to be sparking people's imaginations. We already have all the technology laid out to get to Mars. We know how to do it. We put probes there. There's a few unanswered questions to put people there, but we will do that. There's no question we will do that. So we need to start sparking the next level of imagination, and we will get technology and discoveries from that aren't related to interstellar travel, but they'll change our lives for sure.
Yeah. And you know what got me going on this, Reid? It's really interesting when you look at the timeline from Kitty Hawk to landing on the moon, something less than 67 years. And in 67 years, humankind went from flying, 800 feet to over a 250,000 miles and landing on a different planet and then safely returning to the surface of the Earth. What's interesting for me, I learned as a little league football coach, it was this basic notion of set the bar very high and you'll be surprised what the kids can do. And frankly, for humankind, we need to set the bar high in everything we do. It's this excellence and humility that we talked about before. It's this notion of striving to do more. It's the thing that we as humans, when we climb to the mountain to look and see what's on the other side, to continually push on and go and go and go. And for me, that was something that helped me to give back. And of course, the other thing from my perspective and experience is both of my kids are educators. So I have 2 kids that both have been teachers their careers. My son teaches and coaches special needs kids, and my daughter teaches the advanced children in 4th grade. These things are a motivation for me to learn from my children. So any way we can pass this on is exciting and fun and new. Anyhow, well, let's see. If you got any questions you want to ask, Reid?
Well, you really touched on a lot of the leadership and the inspirational things, but I would say so far over at LSI, what have you taken from NASA? What are the key things that you've taken from your time at NASA?
Well, number one is having a mission statement. What are we about? We are clearly about inspiration, education, interstellar travel, and advanced research and development. And frankly, our foundation is the advanced research and development. Where there's focus, there's science, there's a need to be involved, and then identifying programs that you want to be involved in. And we have 3 main programs: research and development for interstellar travel, university partnerships, and then student programs, outreach, and education. And identifying those 3 areas was key. And then get the right ball players. One of my great leaders I can think of that taught me when I was a youngster at NASA said, figure out whatever challenge it is that you have and divide it up into little segments and find somebody you know and trust and put them on those problems and let them dive in. And Sonny White is clearly diving into our advanced research and development arenas. We've got all kinds of great partnerships with Texas A&M and a variety of universities across the United States and internationally. We've let out some interstellar initiative grants, $1 million worth, and we're a little over halfway through that process where they're continually providing feedback on what their scientific research entails and what they're finding out. So it's an exciting time. And then going out and getting good people. Reid Wiseman's one of those kind of people, and that's what we'll continue to do. Ask a lot of questions, maintain that curiosity, keep the mind going, set things up, help others be successful, encourage them, give them focus. Those are the things that really help with LSI these days. And frankly, starting LSI, Dr. Cam Gafarian is our primary benefactor. This guy was one of my prime contractors back when I was running FOD several years back, and he sold his company, but we had remained good friends. When I decided to retire, we joined forces together and decided to develop the Limitless Space Institute, and here we are talking today. So it's been a blast. Life is a blast. I mean, at the end of the day, every morning when you get up until that day ends for you and rinse and repeat needs to be inspiration and motivation for those around you. Otherwise, you're no fun to be around. Who wants to be around that kind of person? Anyhow.
It's great, BK. It's always fun to talk to you. You motivate me even when we're just talking over Zoom here. Humble, hungry, people savvy, and then set a high goal. And I think LSI is doing that. So let's get humans outside the solar system and visiting some neighbor stars.
All right, Reid. Well, we really appreciate you joining us this morning, and everybody out there. Hopefully there's a couple of folks listening to this. I think they'll be excited to hear from our next speaker. Dr. Sonny White, a PhD. He is definitely a certified NASA smart guy. He's LSI's Director of Advanced Research and Development. He's a brilliant former NASA advanced power and propulsions expert, is well known, actually globally well known, published hundreds of papers, and he leads our overall technical efforts and much of our planning efforts at the Limitless Space Institute, where, you know, our focus at the end of the day, to be able to do interstellar travel, we're going to have to go incredibly fast, and that's a term that Sonny uses regularly. So next up in our next up in the batting cage is going to be Dr. Sonny White. Thanks, Reid.
See you, BK.
See you, bud.